In this lesson, we will have a look at the first-person character controller. When you have created a nice level inside the Leadwerks editor, then you sometimes want to quickly test it out by having a nice stroll around in your level. The Leadwerks engine 3.1 allows you to do this very quickly and very simple by using the built-in character controller. I've opened up the FPS controller map. When we go to the perspective viewport and we maximize it by pressing F12, we can see that we have a nice little level to test out the FPS character controller functionality. As you can see here, we have a little green puppet here that is going to be our character controller. So first let's have a look at what this character controller here is. Go to the Scene tab, locate the player object, and then go to the Script tab. As you can see, we have the FPS player.lua script attached to it. This script allows you to create a character controller player and change all these values in order to have your character behave as you want it to. For instance, the move speed, the way it jumps, or how high the player is. In the Physics tab, we can see that the Physics mode is being set to character controller. We have a mass of 10, and the collision type is set to character. If you would want to create a character by hand, these options are really important. Now before we continue, let's first have a look at how this character controller works inside the game. So let's run this. As you can see, we start off right at the place where our character controller is. The model is no longer visible. That is something we've done inside the script. So you're ready to go as you are. So the first three obstacles you can see here, they have something to do with the step height. The step height inside a game or inside Leadwerks is determining whether an object like the character controller should automatically hop onto or jump onto this object. As you can see, we have this sidewalk kind of object, and if I walk towards it, the character controller automatically goes, well, on top of it. That's really useful, especially when you have sidewalks or stairs that have very low thresholds to get onto. Also, this second block also has a step height that is low enough for the character controller to automatically go on top of it. However, this third one here, it's too high. We have to jump in order to get on top of it. Let's move on to the next step. As you can see, we have these stairs here, and this is a nice little demonstration of what we've just been through. These stairs are high enough, but not too high, in order for the character to walk on top of them right away. Now our next trick or our next challenge is jumping. Well, if I would keep walking and I jump, you'll notice a lovely sound of jumping, and we can go towards the end. Now it is possible that jumping a gap might not be efficient, like this. In that case, we need to run. If you hold down the Shift key, you will be able to run. So let's try this again. There we go. And the last one, there we go. The last thing we're going to cover in this lesson is the slopes that a character can come across. Well, we have a slope that has a very low angle, and we can simply walk up against it. No problem whatsoever. But what if you have any slopes that are very steep? How will the character walk up against it? Well, this slope right here in the middle has an angle of 45 degrees, which is the maximum angle for a character controller to walk up against. If we go to this left slope, we will see that the character controller is not being able to go on top of it. Even better, if we would go on top of it, then the character controller will slide down it automatically. So let's get back to our scene by pressing escape. Now let's say that for some reason you want to create your own character controller. This character controller we have right here has been made as a prefab, which means that you can simply drag it into this scene. So let's delete it by pressing delete. go to the Assets tab, click on Prefabs, select the Player folder, and there we have the FPS Player Prefab. Hold down your left mouse button and drag it in. As you can see, we already have this prefab being placed in the scene, but it's facing the wrong way. If we would start playing this scene, then you'll see that we'll look at a wall, and that's not what we want. So let's close it off again, and as you can see, we have this option here which says rotate Y, which is this green gizmo arrow here, and if we press it once, it is sufficient for us to be looking in the correct direction. We go back to the Scene tab. Let's say we're going to change a couple of values here. We can jump a lot higher. And if we do that for the first time, it will notify us that this instance of this object here is a prefab. And once we start changing values, the prefab connection has been lost. In this case, we want to do that. Now let's say that this character controller that we've created here with this extreme jump force is something that we want to save as a new prefab. All we have to do is right-click on the player itself in the Scene tab and say Save as Prefab. We could then save it as the FPS player, but for instance under another name, like Jumper. Let's delete it again. Go back to Assets, and as you can see, we have one new prefab available, the FPS player Jumper. And if we go to the Scene tab, we will automatically see that the jump force with the value of 16 has been set automatically. And that concludes this lesson of the Leadwerks Engine 3.1.